Once upon a time, there was a king who had no children, and his life was filled with sadness. He sought advice from all the doctors and scholars in his kingdom to solve this problem, but nothing worked. To distract himself from his misery, he devoted his time to hunting. One day, while walking in the forest, he saw a snake basking in the sun, surrounded by its babies. He gazed longingly at this family scene, realizing that even a reptile had what he lacked. With a deep sigh, he complained to the heavens, "O heaven, am I worth less to you than this snake, that you torment me by denying me children and happiness?" The sight of the snake family stayed with him. Soon after, a child was born to the king, but it was a monster, half human, half dragon. Now the king's grief was even greater than before. They couldn't kill the monster because it was of royal blood, so they threw the dragon child into a dry well. They fed it by lowering a skinful of goat's milk every day. As the dragon child grew, it required meat. They began throwing a young girl into the well every week for it to devour. When it grew older, they gave it a maiden instead. Every household in the land had to provide a maiden for the dragon child. One day it was the turn of a poor widower who had a daughter from his first wife and had married a widow with her own daughter. The man said they should send his stepdaughter to the dragon child, but his wife insisted it should be his daughter. The wife's will prevailed, and they prepared to send the man's daughter the next day. The maiden was beautiful and graceful. She cried all night and prayed for God's mercy. At midnight she heard a voice in her dreams saying, "Don't be afraid of being sent to the dragon child. Tell your father to send 3 skins full of black goat's milk with you, and take a knife for yourself. Ask your father to wrap you in a bull's hide and lower you and the milk into the well by rope. When the dragon child tells you to come out of the bull's hide so it can eat you, tell it to come out of its dragon skin so you can bathe it with milk. When it comes out, cut open the bull's hide with your knife. Come out and bathe it." The next morning, the maiden told her father about her dream. He prepared everything as instructed, praying that the dream would come true. When the maiden was lowered into the well, the dragon child ordered her to come out of the bull's hide. She replied as she had been advised. Enraged by the maiden's response, the dragon's skin burst open, and a handsome young man emerged. The maiden quickly cut open the bull's hide with her knife, but in her haste, she stumbled and broke one of her front teeth. She bathed the young man with the goat's milk, and he transformed into a healthy, gallant youth. The young man expressed his gratitude to her for freeing him from his terrible curse. Just then, the maiden's father peered into the well to see if her dream had come true. Seeing the miraculous transformation, he ran to inform the king. The king rushed to the well with the queen and his advisers. They drew the former dragon child and his saviour from the well with great joy and ceremony. A grand wedding festival lasted for 40 days and nights, and the young couple fell in love and got married. Sometime later, the dragon child, now a normal young man, had to leave home due to war. Before departing, he asked his mother, "Please don't send my bride away, not even to her father's house. I fear something bad might happen to her." The queen promised to keep the bride safe. However, the bride's stepmother, consumed by jealousy, had evil intentions. She came to the palace and invited the bride to visit, claiming that she and her husband missed her. When this invitation was refused, she sent her husband to plead with the queen. "Please, let my daughter visit us, even if it's just for one day," he begged. The queen thought there couldn't be any harm in a short visit and allowed the bride to go. The stepmother took her own daughter and the bride for a walk along the seashore. When they arrived, she suggested, "Daughters, let's go for a swim." They entered the sea to bathe. The wicked stepmother, pretending to help the bride, led her towards deeper water. Suddenly she gave the bride a violent push. The waves caught the bride and the current swept her out to sea. Confident that the bride had drowned, the stepmother hurried back to shore with her own daughter. She dressed her daughter in the bride's clothes and sent her to the king's palace, pretending she was the real bride. Meanwhile, the true bride struggled against the violent waves. She managed to grab hold of an empty barrel floating nearby, which saved her from drowning. The wind blew her further from shore, and for 3 days and nights she drifted on the open sea. Finally, she was washed up on an uninhabited shore. The bride walked along the coast, but saw no signs of human life. She was hungry, naked, and exhausted. First, she gathered rushes and moss to weave a makeshift covering for herself. Then she found some wild berries to eat and quenched her thirst from a nearby stream. As she rested by the stream, she noticed a small hut hidden among the bulrushes. Approaching cautiously, she peeked inside and saw a young man sleeping. She sat down near the door to wait. As the sun set, the young man in the hut woke up. Coming out, he noticed the maiden, and thinking she might be a fairy or demon, made the sign of the cross and stepped back. Surprised that she didn't vanish, he asked, "Are you a fairy, a demon, or a human? Tell me who you are." The maiden told him her story. The young man replied, "My story is just as strange as yours. I was the only son of a rich man and lived a life of luxury and excess. I went hunting every day. Once, I failed to catch any game for 3 days straight. In my anger and frustration, I wandered all night. At dawn, in a moment of madness, I decided to shoot the sun out of the sky, thinking that if I couldn't enjoy myself, I'd plunge the world into darkness. I aimed my bow at the rising sun, but as soon as I released the arrow, I felt a blazing hand slap my face. A fiery hand grabbed my hair and threw me into this wilderness. I heard an angry voice from the clouds declare that I was cursed and would never see sunlight again. Now I'm trapped here, sleeping in this hut during the day and only venturing out at night for food. If I leave the hut after sunrise, I'm doomed to a horrible death." Fate had brought these two young people together in this lonely place, so they decided to live as husband and wife. The woman worked during the day, and the man at night, and they managed to survive. As time passed, the woman became pregnant and needed help. They decided she should go to the parents of the sun child, as the young man was now known. The sun child wrote a letter to his parents. "I'm sending you my wife. Please take care of her. Don't try to find me. I can't see the sun or come home. If I do, I'll surely die. I am cursed." Traveling by night and hiding in caves during the day, the sun child brought his wife near his parents' house before returning to his lonely hut. The woman delivered the letter and was welcomed by her in-laws. When the sun child's parents learned their son was alive, they wanted to bring him home, but the bride discouraged them, explaining that it would lead to his death. In due time, the young woman gave birth to a son. As she rocked the baby's cradle, she sang lullabies about her own life experiences. One night, as the mother was putting her baby to sleep, another voice joined in from outside, singing a melodious lullaby. The bride recognized it as the sun child's voice. Drawn by love for his child, he had traveled a great distance but couldn't enter the house. This happened several times until the sun child's parents became suspicious. They questioned their daughter-in-law, who explained, "It's your son who comes to sing. His love for the baby draws him here, but he can't come inside. If you force him to enter, he'll die." The sun child's parents didn't believe her. "You must be lying," they exclaimed angrily. "There's something suspicious going on here. We'll keep watch tonight and catch this mysterious visitor. If it's our son, fine. If not, you'll be in trouble." That night they kept watch. When they heard the voice outside, they rushed out and grabbed the man. To their surprise, it was indeed their son. He pleaded with them, "Please, let me go. If I'm not hidden in my hut by sunrise, I'll die. Spare my life. I'm cursed." His parents thought he was deceiving them and kept him at home until daybreak. As soon as the first rays of sunlight appeared, the sun child collapsed in his parents' arms and appeared to die. Strangely, his spirit didn't fully leave his body. They hoped he might revive at sunset, but he remained in the same lifeless state at night. The house was filled with sorrow. The sun child wasn't dead enough to be buried, nor alive enough to speak or be helped. His parents were distraught, beating their heads with stones and pulling their hair. One night the grieving mother had a dream. A voice told her, "Get up, put on iron sandals, and take an iron rod. Travel west until your sandals are worn through and your rod breaks. Where this happens, you'll find a remedy for your son." Driven by a mother's love, the woman immediately ordered a blacksmith to make iron sandals and an iron rod. She set out westward, walking day and night. She traveled through the lands of white, red, and black people, through realms of fairies, giants, and genies. She went farther than any beast or bird would dare, reaching the very edges of the earth. In the distance, she saw a palace built of blue marble, As she approached, her iron rod fell from her hand and broke. When she took off her sandals to shake out the dust, she found holes in each one. She thought to herself, "This must be where I'll find the cure for my son." She entered the palace, passing through 12 successive courtyards. Each was surrounded by 4 arches where thousands of stars slept. In the center of each courtyard was a marble pond with crystal water gushing from a spout. There were no trees, grass, animals, or birds, just a deep, pervasive silence. In the middle courtyard she saw 4 golden arches supporting a golden room. Inside was a pearl bed, and near the window sat a queen of extraordinary beauty on a golden throne. She was covered in diamonds from head to toe, her face radiating light. The poor woman was awestruck. She turned pale and began to tremble like an autumn leaf in a cold wind. She fell to her knees, about to speak, when the queen interrupted her. The queen spoke. "Human, heaven has never allowed a mortal to enter this palace before. You must have a compelling reason to be here. From your appearance, I assume you're a mother with a maternal grief. Tell me your story, don't be afraid." Encouraged by the queen's words, the woman replied, "Long live the queen. Yes, I'm a mother who has travelled this far to ask for my only son's life." She then told her story. The queen responded, "Your son was wicked. I too am a mother. The sun is my son, whose living rays illuminate heaven and earth. Your son was so evil that he attempted to shoot my son, the giver of life to the universe. Many sins may be forgiven, but a sin against the sole source of life is unforgivable. Your son was therefore doomed to be deprived of life. He's cursed to live but not live, to die but not die." "I'm a mother," the woman repeated, "here to beg for my son's life. I've come so far that my iron sandals are worn out and my iron rod is broken. I'd go even further if necessary. For the love you bear your son, O queen of this luminous orb, please find a remedy for my grief." The queen was moved by the woman's words and replied, "Many unworthy children enjoy life simply because of their virtuous mothers. Let it be so with your son, O virtuous woman, with such great maternal love. Now hide behind those stars. Evening approaches, and my son will soon arrive. If you don't hide, you'll be burned." The queen continued, "When my son arrives, he first dives into this pond. Then he comes to be nursed at my breast. When he does, take a bottle of water from the pond where he's washed and carry it home. Sprinkle that water on your son, and he'll be healed." Soon the sun arrived, embodied in flames. The stars awoke and stood to salute their mighty king before scattering across the blue dome to twinkle in their orbits. As night had fallen, the sun dove into the pond, and the queen took him out, placed him in the pearl bed, and began to nurse him. The sun, eternally youthful, is forever a baby. The woman emerged from her hiding place, quickly filled a bottle with water from the pond, and hurried home. Upon arrival, she sprinkled the water on her son, who was immediately healed. News of the woman's incredible journey spread worldwide. Princes and philosophers came from distant lands to see the woman and the sun-child, and hear about these wonders. Among the visitors was the dragon child, who had returned safely from the wars. He was surprised to find his bride changed, although the 2 stepsisters closely resembled each other. However, he had placed a golden tooth where his bride's broken front tooth had been, allowing him to detect the substitution. After questioning his mother, he discovered that the bride had been sent to her stepmother's house, where he assumed she had been disposed of and replaced by her stepsister. All his efforts to find his lost bride had been in vain, so he came to see the sun-child and his mother, hoping to find a way to locate his wife. The dragon child became a guest in the sun-child's house. During supper, he shared his story. The bride, who was serving at the table, smiled, revealing her golden tooth. This led to her discovery, and the sun-child explained how she had come to find him. Having shared a meal together, they had become friends and agreed to resolve the situation amicably. They devised a plan. They would roast salted meat and make the bride eat it without allowing her to drink. Each man would take a pitcher of water, and they would all go riding in the fields. The one she asked for a drink would be deemed her rightful husband. They set out on their ride, with the wife accompanying them, carrying her child in her arms. She grew thirsty, but, not wanting to offend either man, remained silent for a while. Finally, feeling faint, she knew she had to make a decision. "Sunchild, Sunchild!" she called out. The Sunchild dismounted and prepared to give her a drink. But then she exclaimed, "Dragonchild, Dragonchild!" He too dismounted, ready to offer her water. Turning to the Sunchild, she said, "Here, take this child whose father you are, but I am the wedded wife of the Dragonchild." She drank from the Dragonchild's pitcher and went home with him. Thus their troubles ended, and they all achieved their desires.